There's an aura around a videotape. It's like, what sort of life has it led? The path this has taken to get to me. This is one of my rarest tapes. In New Zealand, Last House on the Left. In the 90s, it was like the golden age of buying ex-rentals. It was great. I look back now and think I wish I'd have got more, you know. Just think I just should have bought everything.
They call us tapeheads, a nostalgic breed of video hoarders. I'm on a quest to find some of the biggest physical media collections in the world. To find those long-lost films that have only survived on the VHS format. So join me and my crew as we take a look at some of the most insane collections. Dust off those VCRs, it's playback time.
Videotape was the primary physical media for films for, around about 20 years. And there was just so many tapes produced, and not all of it went to landfill. People held onto that stuff. I started collecting videotapes in the 90s, around like 96, 97. In the late 90s, a lot of video stores were either closing down or they were just getting rid of loads and loads of tapes because DVD was coming on, and tapes took up a lot of space, and you could fit 2 or 3 DVDs on a shelf for every tape you had on there. The quality was better, and people just generally had stores full of tapes that weren't renting, and they needed to make room for new stock. Stores back then were getting rid of just tapes wholesale, and it was very, very easy to amass a huge collection for not a lot of money. I remember in the late 90s, where I was living at the time, there was about like 4 or 5 Video Easies. And I didn't have a car, but I'd be just calling up friends saying, can you drive me to the Video Easy? I've got to buy these tapes. It was just amazing for someone that was really into films to get these videos for like $1 or $2. That was sort of like the golden era. I mean, I got friends that were buying tapes in the 80s, and they've still got the receipts, and it's amazing to see what they were buying back then. But in the 90s, it was like the golden age of buying ex-rentals because there was just so much being tossed away, and there was so much choice. And people were buying them, but if you're into cult and horror, it was just so easy to find so much great stuff. And I started becoming familiar with the labels. So the first label I started collecting was Palace Explosive. And I got into horror movies as a teenager, and you just started familiarizing yourself with all these labels. And from there, it was just spiral into videotapes. There was a clearance place in a nearby town that just had thousands of tapes, and every Monday I had off work, I'd be over there just grabbing all these tapes. And not only tapes, they had catalogs and video sleeves, anything pertaining to video stores. So it was just great. I was just collecting so much stuff for very little money. It was great. I look back now and think I wish I'd have got more. I just think I just should have bought everything. But you can only grab so much. So these were handed out to video stores when they would be opening accounts to buy tapes from K&C. So there's an explanation of the products and packaging, the range, about how it's a great quality label, and
all lies.
It was a terrific label. Thank you very much. Some of these tapes were like upwards of $100 to buy brand new, and now they're just being tossed out for $1. And I'm thinking, so many people must have hired this. There's an aura around a videotape. It's like, what sort of life has it led? The path this has taken to get to me.
How many different VCRs has it gone through in different houses?
Well, I remember hiring scanners, and every time I hired scanners, where the guy's head explodes, it would just be fuzz, because so many people had just rewound it and paused it, slow-mo, rewind, let's watch it again, just over and over and over and over. Every copy of scanners I've had, that roadshow tape, that one scene just it's just ecstatic, And the good thing about tapes was that they might do that for a second or two, but you can still watch the movie. If a DVD got damaged, it would be stuffed. You'd have to take it back and complain, or, put another one in and hope for the best. They're just really not a durable format for rental, Tapes, as clunky as they are, they lasted. I mean, these tapes are still playable. I got tapes that go back as old as 1978 and they still play. This is one of my rarest tapes. In New Zealand, Last House on the Left. This is the only copy I've ever seen. Very cool.
It's freaking awesome.
completely uncut, and it's got the Australian copyright warning at the start, so I suspect this was the version that was going to be released in Australia but was eventually refused classification. I run a small label called X-Film. The first release I did were the Video Nasties box sets. Act of Vengeance, which was released in Australia under the dubious title Rape Squad. It was like a legendary tape. When I saw it was available, I was like, oh, well, this makes sense because I know it's got a bit of notoriety here. I Drink Your Blood from Grindhouse. I did that as like a double Blu-ray. It's exactly the same as their release. Water Power, The Thirsty Dead, Jekyll and Hyde portfolio, which was like, you know, came out in Australia. It was a notorious Video Nasty in the UK, but I only had an Australian release. I've always been into how a tape looks and the aesthetic of the tape, everything right down to the case and the stickers and the paper stock and all that sort of stuff that goes into the authentic product. So when I wanted to do a label, I wanted to do stuff on VHS. And I wanted to put out stuff that I would think was cool, that looked authentic. It was really hard to find places that would replicate tapes for a reasonable price because it's not a very common thing anymore. So I just thought, oh, someone's got to have this equipment out there, I'll just buy it. So I found a guy that had 10 VCRs and a distribution amp and all the cables, and I bought it all and just started doing tapes. The hardest thing to find was the actual original tape stock. So I was lucky I found a warehouse that had a bunch left behind. But I really wanted to use really cool cases because the only tape cases I could get were like hard plastic cases. So I was on the lookout and I called all the companies that used to make them in the 80s and they threw the molds out years ago. And then a friend of mine saw on Gumtree that there was someone selling these original Focus video cases. And I called her up and I was freaking out. I said, like, how many have you got? And she said, I've got 10,000 of them. And I couldn't even visualize what 10,000 cases look like. I said, oh, I'll take them all. They're the real deal. You know, there's like ads from the 80s on the inside, all the new releases and, you know, rental of VCRs. They're cool. So Focus were around mainly South Australia. I think just only South Australia. Yeah. But it was a miracle that someone stockpiled all these cases, like 10,000 of them. I mean, it's just, I'm just amazed that they still existed. But it makes me think, like, what else is still out there, you know, that people hoarded from back in that era. The Killing of America is the next release on X-Film. I've been working on this for a long time, but it's going to be great. The booklet is going to be enormous. It's going to be a VHS and Blu-ray. It's not going to be available in stores. It'll only be available direct from X-Film. So that's The Killing of America, the legendary US Mondo murder mayhem documentary from the very early 80s.
Know the truth and survive the killing of America.
There's all kinds of people out there with this stuff. You know, a lot of people held onto these things, and the fact that someone held onto 10,000 video cases is just, I find it baffling. But you know, they're out there. You know,
I guess us hoarders are relying on other hoarders.
That's it. I mean, you know, it's like with records. You know, there's always like loads of records popping up, and, you know, everything's picked over. It's like, no, there's always people circulating this stuff. There's always fresh stuff out there to find.
Coming up next on Video Hoarders.
I'm still one of the survivors in this industry. I started in August the 8th, 1983. I opened up a video store in Mount Alexander Road in Moonee Ponds. I moved away from the video store and started focusing on distribution. One of my first purchases was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Was this the beginning of Force Video?
This was exactly the beginning of Force Video.